The White Ribbon Campaign, WRC, was created by a group of men with the main founders being Jack Lépine, Ron Stewart and Michael Kaufman. They formed the campaign in 1991 in response to an older co-but checks-out gentleman Elliot Rodger, Marc Lépine, who committed a mass shooting killing 14 women, injuring 10 more women, as well as injuring 4 men. And that's pretty much it. That's how the WRC started in a nutshell. Thing is, I look like an idiot now after already speaking to people about this campaign, because I gave it the benefit of the doubt that it's only recently it started to go after men thanks to all the far left feminist stuff, but I was wrong. As it turns out, not only has that been the case since day one, it's a grift by far left men off the backs of mass shooting victims. And I do not say that lightly or to throw shade, because when you look at the history of the founders, Ron Stewart there's not really much information about. Michael Kaufman is basically your original university leftist, and even before the shooting he was an absolute feminist ally grifter going on about usual blue hair and septum piercing stuff like the patriarchy. But one funny thing to point out is that he said he wanted the WRC to not focus on things like politics. Well, that's his entire political career. Gee, it's almost as if it benefits him personally. And Jack Lépine, he was the original Justin Trudeau, where he can only be described as a Canadian Keir Starmer, with his focus on DEI and social spending as he led the Canadian New Democratic Party, where he would have no problem making Canada's own people feel like minorities and second-class citizens in their own country if he got into power. So I was wrong in that the WRC was a campaign that didn't attack men. It always attacked men. So everything that comes out of it and claims to represent truly and in the most literal sense came from university leftists capitalising on a mass shooting. Just imagine that though. Imagine you're a woman and you and your girl mates get Elliot Rodgered only for your legacy to be stolen by 3 university tankies who made a mint off your corpses, where their money-making campaign is recognised more than what happened to you and your friends. Women don't need to worry about male enemies when that's who they have as their male allies. While I will come back to the shooter, as that's important, this isn't a video about the history of the WRC, although I'm sure its history is very juicy. I only mention its origin as an important factor in that it creates the men like the shooter, and it's always been the case it hates men more than it loves women, and this is about the main hashtag for this year's 2024 campaign, which is hashtag ItStartsWithMen. In 2023, the tagline was hashtag change the story, 2022, hashtag the goal, 2021, hashtag all men can. 2020 didn't really have a tagline, because fair enough, because that was because of the flu. In 2019, it was hashtag make the promise. In 2018, hashtag I don't speak hater. The reason I'm mentioning those other taglines is because you can see how cleverly designed they are, where despite the campaign itself being 100% designed to target and hate men, they only target men in the taglines when they're brave enough to, in order to not show their true colours, because if you show you hate men in the taglines and don't even bother trying to hide it, good luck getting people on board. I'm actually surprised they chose to go with this campaign this year now, actually, because we're in the middle of a massive political pendulum swing where I should imagine next year in 2025 it will be something like hashtag men don't leave, because the DEI purge has started where even large companies are doing layoffs and all this accreditation stuff won't mean anything. And on top of that, people are finally starting to have enough of shit like feminism, the LGBT, refugees welcome, so they're starting to see the WRC for what it is, a pro-women, anti-men, champagne socialist activist campaign that doesn't give a fuck about women, especially since, you know. But yes, onto the task at hand, hashtag ItStartsWithMen. The focus of this is to ask men to speak up against other men's actions if they see men saying or doing something inappropriate to women, which can be anything from stopping a domestic, to telling a lad off or telling a sexist joke, where you're a misogynist for finding it remotely funny. Basically the Gillette White Knight advert. The hashtag ItStartsWithMen campaign is asking men to white knight, where any man who fails to white knight is part of the problem. Let's start with the obvious. Men do start by protecting women from other men. Ask any man who's got a female family member or friend, they will tell you they're always ready to grab some lads to go full Letterkenny on a guy who touches their female friends and family. I myself have personally protected female friends and significant others in the past, even doing it not long before writing this video, as I was out with a female friend where a guy creeped on her after he got a number, so instead of going home I went back to her hometown with her to make sure she got home safely. I'm not going to turn this into a tough guy post and act like I can handle myself in a situation and that I'm hard as fuck where I can whip anyone. I am 6'1" and 235 pounds. That doesn't mean I'm a UFC heavyweight. I've got that Stanley Ipkiss white collar strength. Having said that, when someone's safety is on the line, damn right I'm going to do whatever I can. The thing about the men don't step in shit is it's so easily disprovable just by going outside instead of sitting in feminist lectures and staying on TikTok all day. Even those stupid YouTube prank channels disproved it like a decade ago when quote-unquote social experiments were all the rage and male abuse versus female abuse videos came out. Just a side note, yes, a lot of the prank channels were fake with paid actors, but there are real ones which make it the whole selling point. We can ignore that though because yes, look at all these men doing nothing and letting it carry on. I'm pretty sure we've seen some join in on the abuse of these social experiment women actually. Meanwhile, it's absolute meal and drink entertainment watching dudes get beaten down and belittled by women. No comedy laugh track or live audience cues needed. This actually raises a point about Jeremy Kyle. On one of his shows, his guest was a male abuse victim telling the story about how he was physically abused on top of being locked up and isolated, and when the audience laughed, he called this out. Sorry, but when Jeremy Kyle, a man who was the ringmaster for a guest taking his own life with production's bullshit polygraph test, is more morally consistent in the stance of gender-based violence than a campaign designed for gender-based violence, the campaign needs to retire or have a serious reform. The point here is that the WRC is asking men to do something we do naturally anyway, so it's a disingenuous campaign in its very nature. The other problem with it is how far it's actually asking men to go, being joke, tone, and politics police. With wanting men to tone other men, the WRC is straight up demanding that men overstep to monitor women like children in order to protect their feelings, and I'll tell you, most of my female friends and family members will tell some soy jack of blue hair getting offended on their behalf to fuck right off, just as I would if I was a woman, as I'd be offended at anything trying to infantilise me. Are you really going to accept that kitchen joke? Yes, it's a kitchen joke. It ain't that deep. But my lady. But my lady nothing. Fuck off, you fedora tipper. Honestly, where is the danger in a joke or showing disagreement or frustration in something? There is none. People will often say things about you or something you care about that you don't like. That is a lesson you should learn just by being alive. But according to the WRC, women are soft, emotional, delicate flowers who are so easily stressed and offended that men not only need to step in for very real danger, men need to protect women's feelings. Gee, who and what does that sound like to you? It's so weird that a pro-women, anti-female violence campaign would give the same speeches with different words as PUA red pill do-bros like Andrew Tate, Rollo Tomassi, Fresh and Fit, etc, etc. But what WRC staff, supporters and feminists in general will tell you is that I'm misrepresenting what's being asked and this isn't their aim at all. I'll remind you what one of the points are. Learn how to and call out seemingly harmless conversations, jokes and behaviour. If something said is seemingly harmless, that's because it is. So yes, infantilising women with language and thought policing is admittedly the aim, and I am not misrepresenting anything. But let's talk about thought policing specifically. Okay, so the WRC, with their #ItStartsWithMen campaign, want men to do better and to do more. But if we dare brainstorm to look at certain things that are indicators for women to be in danger and want to remove or restrict those indicators as a prevention method, we're bigots, we're racists, we're transphobes, we're victim blamers, etc, etc. I get it now. White ribbon and feminism don't want to protect women, they just want the political narrative to win, no matter how much it harms women. Outstanding. This is why I always ask the which men question when women go on about men, because it can go one or two ways, where I get called a transphobe and or racist because it can mean minority men who objectively harm women more, or it can mean men entering women's spaces to take advantage. Not only does this show that radical feminists and groups like the WRC are actually interested in women's safety, it also shows how hypocritical they are. While they're so euphoric in attacking men for everything, they scream isms and discrimination all of a sudden when their own game is played against them. If feminists and groups like WRC genuinely had women's safety in their interest, they would advocate anything and everything that helps, no matter where it stands politically. Yet they reject everything that's just right of Joseph Stalin. So I notice violence against women goes up when we take in a load of undocumented migrants. Maybe we should vet them before taking them in?
No, open borders are a good thing, racist.
I'd like to honour the request that women's spaces should be for women.
No, that's trans exclusion, transphobe.
Maybe we can teach women how to vet partners so they don't go off with abusive partners.
No, that's victim blaming, misogynist.
A pattern in rape culture, specifically stranger rapes, it's connected to party culture. Why don't we get rid of party culture?
What are you, the fun police?
What do you want then? What do you want from us? Because you can stand on your soapboxes demanding for men to do better all you want, but if you're not actually willing to accept solutions to reach that goal, you are just shouting from a soapbox, or in the case of organisations like White Ribbon, you are shouting from a soapbox with a corporate AK-47, forcing people to listen to your soapbox screeching, and anyone who refuses to be accredited are bigots. And I am so glad I recorded this interaction on a TikTok live before writing this, because it perfectly captures this exact problem, and I suggest you give the full thing a watch after this. But basically, Media Knox has Manifold on as a guest, and he's spitballing ideas and solutions to help women, and this cartoonishly angry sociopath rejects everything and could only really insult him with this because he wasn't getting angry or spouting tateisms, which is what she wanted him to do.
Does he just not feel empathy?
No, what he is he's a tech engineer with an overinflated sense of ego, and he thinks that he's got the key to the solution, and he's fixated on it because what it does is other him from any responsibility of rectifying it. That's what he's done.
Let's finish by going back to the start, because when I said I'll come back to the shooter that spawns White Ribbon, and there's a big reason for that, well, let's explore that reason. To give some bite-sized revision on the shooting that was $ for a trio of men to birth the WRC, Marc Lépine was a mechanical engineering student at the École Polytechnique de Montréal University in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. He was the son to his father, Muslim Algerian businessman Rachid Garvey, and his mother, Monique Lépine, who was a nurse, and to the shock of absolutely no one, Rachid was highly abusive towards Monique. Hey look, it's the point about migrants and minorities with the witch men question I was chatting about earlier. Because of this abuse, Marc came from a very broken home where it got that bad Monique had to separate from Rachid, or for a better word, escape him. With Rachid out of the picture and Marc hating him so much he legally changed his second name to replace his father's with his mother's, the family struggled where Monique pretty much had minority custody, as Marc and his sister Nadia could only see Monique on weekends as she was continuing her nursing duties on weekdays. Okay, Marc hates his dad and can only see his mum on the weekends, but at least there's no more abuse and he can focus on his aspirations. You can only go up from rock bottom, right? Wrong. Puberty hit him like a truck. He was a social outcast, struggled with his mental health, was bullied a bit, his own sister joined in on the bullying to the point he was happy to see her get rehomed for when she was a druggie, and because all the shit severely affected how he functions in everyday relationships, he struggled getting work and was rejected for a few things till he noticed one social pattern forming in feminism and how it's affecting men, noting which female students were feminists, and then it was showtime. He carried out the École Polytechnique massacre on the 6th of December 1986 at the École Polytechnique de Montréal University in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, killing 10 women, injuring another 10 women, as well as injuring 4 men, with a Ruger Mini-14 semi-automatic rifle and a hunting knife. I know I had to rush through a lot of stuff just to give the bare bones, but that's to keep the video on track without turning it into an absolute mad lads on Marc Lépine. The part that's really important is just how much shit Marc went through, and while he has himself to blame, it's not surprising he turned to feminism as a target for his rage, because when you're just trying to be a normal dude and you have had nothing but shit hand in life after shit hand in life, then when you go to university you're surrounded by the 80s equivalent of blue hairs and septum piercings and ambiguous genders telling you are how inherently evil you are, you're privileged, you don't know what the struggle is, no one gives a shit about your problems and that you need to care about women's problems. Yeah, that's going to do something to a man, no matter how reasonable they are. As Marvin said before going Killdozer, sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things. Now, it should go without saying, but I am in no way condoning Marc's actions. I'll argue he could have just turned the gun on himself and be over and done with it, but suppressed rage of past events mixed with real-time rage of currently being demonised is a hell of a chemical reaction. When you look at other supreme gentlemen misogynistic terrorists like Elliot Rodger or Jake Davison, it's always the same story. Broken home, poor family relationship, bullied, social outcast, mental health problems, etc., etc. But just from that short list, organisations like White Ribbon with their #ItStartsWithMen campaign covers 3 of them under bullying men, causing men to be social outcasts thanks to feminist radicalisation, and giving men mental health issues, living in constant low self-esteem. Men don't just get rejected by a woman, then wake up as an extreme misogynist in the morning to go out and revenge rape or revenge assault like people make it out to be. They don't just have a bit of social awkwardness then decide to play Incels and Rifles because of it. They come from broken homes where, while yes, the father is often the abuser, the mother picks him knowing he was violent, or found out he was violent but then chose to get pregnant with him anyway, being the living meme of y'all do everything but leave. So misogynistic terrorism isn't misogynistic terrorism at all. It's simply a broken home issue fueled by being poked enough times the bear finally snaps. This is why I now ask feminism and feminist organisations like White Ribbon who back things like this #ItStartsWithMen campaign, as well as other things like teaching boys in school that they are rapists for being men, in what world do you think it's a good idea to make boys and men who already feel like shit about themselves with current problems feel even more like shit by saying they're part of the problem and create social discourse towards women? Because you cannot help women by attacking men, just as you cannot help men by attacking women.